Moving forward, we have to start the new chapter now. Uh, Chapter 15, Body Fluids and Circulation. You have learned that all the living cells have to be provided with nutrients, oxygen, and other essential substances. Also, the waste or the harmful substances produced have to be removed continuously for the healthy functioning of tissues. It is therefore essential It is therefore essential substances. Also, the waste of the harmful. Okay. You have learned that all the living cells have to be provided with the nutrients, oxygen, and the other essential substances. Also, the waste or harmful substances produced have to be removed continuously for healthy functioning of the tissues. It is therefore essential to have efficient mechanism for the movement of these substances to the cells and from the cells. Different groups of animals have evolved different methods for this transport. Simple organisms like sponges and coelentrates circulate water from their surrounding through their body cavities to facilitate the cells to exchange these substances. More complex organisms use special fluids within their body to transport such materials. Blood is the most commonly used body fluid for by most of the higher organisms, including humans, for this purpose. Another body fluid, lymph, also helps in the transport of certain substances. In this chapter, you will learn about the composition and properties of blood and lymph tissue fluid, and the mechanism of the circulation of the blood is also explained herein. Blood is a special connective tissue consisting of fluid matrix, plasma, and formed elements. Plasma is a straw colored viscous fluid constituting nearly 55% of the blood. Straw colored viscous fluid constituting nearly 55% of the blood. 90 to 92% of the plasma is water, and proteins contributed to 6 to 8% of it. Fibrinogen, globulins, and albumins are the major proteins. Okay, 92% of the plasma is water, and proteins contribute 6 to 8% of it. Fibrinogen, globulins, and albumins are the major proteins. Fibrinogens are needed for the clotting or coagulation of blood. Globulins primarily are involved in the defense mechanism of the body, and the albumins help in the osmotic balance. Plasma also contains small amount of minerals like sodium, Na plus, Ca2 plus, calcium, magnesium ion, Mg2 plus, and bicarbonate ion, HCO3 minus, Cl minus, chloride ion, etc. Glucose, amino acids, lipids, etc. Glucose, amino acids, lipids, etc. are also present in the plasma, as they are always in the transit in the body. Factors for coagulation or clotting of the blood are also present in the plasma in an inactive form. Plasma without clotting factors is called serum. This for the coagulation or clotting of blood are also present in the plasma in an inactive form. Plasma without the clotting factors is called serum. Formed elements, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets are collectively called formed elements, and they constitute nearly about 45% of the blood. Erythrocytes, or the red blood cells (RBC), are the most abundant of all the cells in the blood. A healthy adult man has on an average 5 millions to 5.5 millions of RBCs millimeter per cube of blood. RBCs are found in the red bone marrow in the adults. RBCs are devoid of nucleus in most of the mammals and are biconcave in shape. They have red colored iron containing complex protein called hemoglobin, hence the color and the name of these cells. A healthy individual has 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every 100 milliliter of blood. These molecules play a significant role in transport of respiratory gases. Okay. Erythrocytes or red blood cells (RBC) are the most abundant of all the cells in the blood. A healthy adult man has on an average 5 millions to 5.5 millions of RBC per milliliter cube of blood. Okay, RBCs are formed in the red bone marrow. In the adults, RBCs are devoid of nucleus in most of the mammals and are biconcave in shape. They have a red colored iron containing complex protein called hemoglobin. Hence the color and the name of the hence well, the color and the name of these cells. Okay, red blood cells, iron containing complex. Okay, the healthy individual has 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every 100 milliliter of blood. These these molecules play a significant uh, role in the transport of the respiratory gases. RBC have an average lifespan of 120 days, after which they are destroyed in the spleen, that is graveyard of RBC. Leukocytes are also known as white blood cells as they are colorless due to the lack of hemoglobin. They are nucleated and relatively lesser in number, which averages 6,000 to 8,000 milliliter per cube of the blood. Leukocytes are generally short-lived. We have two main categories of the WBCs: granulocytes and agranulocytes. Neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils are different types of granulocytes, while leukocytes and the monocytes are the agranulocytes. Leukocytes are also known as white blood cells. They are colorless due to the lack of hemoglobin. They are nucleated and are relatively lesser in number, which averages 6,000 to 8,000 per milliliter cube of the blood. Leukocytes are generally short-lived. We have two main categories of WBCs: granulocytes and agranulocytes. Neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, okay, are different types of granulocytes, while lymphocytes and monocytes are the agranulocytes. Neutrophils are the most abundant cells, 60 to 65%. Uh, Here we use one of the mnemonic called NAM, null, NL, null, mob, null, NL, neutrophil, lymphocytes, and MEB, that is monocyte, eosinophil, and basophil. Okay, this is the abundant in decreasing abundant null map. This is more abundant as a neutrophil, then lymphocytes, then monocytes, then eosinophil, and then here the last, which is the least abundant, is basophils. So here it comes. Neutrophils are the most abundant cells, that is 60 to 65% of the total WBCs. Basophils, see, I told you on the basis of that mnemonic also, but basophils are the least, that is 0.5 to 1% among them. Okay, then we have to keep in mind this percentage also to remember. Questions will be according to the NCERT lines, right? Neutrophils and monocytes. Neutrophils and monocytes, that is 6 to 8%, monocytes is 6 to 8%, are phagocytic. These both neutrophils and monocytes are phagocytic cells which destroy foreign organisms entering the body. Basophils secrete histamine, serotonin, heparin, etc., and are involved in the inflammatory reactions. Inflammatory reactions, or mainly we can say that it is required in the allergic reactions. This is secreted during the allergic reactions. Okay, basophils. Eosinophils resist infections. Eosinophils resist, that is 2 to 3%. Resist infection and are also associated with the allergic reaction. Oh, sorry. Allergic reaction is for eosinophils, not basophils. Basophils have given their own, but histamines also get released during the um allergy reactions. I don't know, I'm not sure, but I'll be sure after. I will search in Google. You do too. Okay, moving forward, eosinophils 2 to 3% resist infections and are also associated with allergic reactions. Lymphocytes are of the two types, B and T lymphocytes. B and T forms. Both B and T lymphocytes are responsible for the immune responses of the body. Again, we will read it again because this is important and not easy to grasp. Neutrophils are the most abundant of the total WBC, that is 60 to 65%, and here basophils are the least, 0.5 to 1%, right, among them. Now neutrophils and monocytes. Monocytes are 6 to 8%. Okay, so monocytes, and then lymphocytes. Where is the lymphocyte? Oh, it was right here. 20 to 20, like neutrophil 60 to 65%, lymphocyte 20 to 25%, monocyte, where is the monocyte? Monocyte 6 to 8%, then eosinophil 3 to 2%, 2 to 3%, and then here it comes basophils, which is 0.5 to 1%. Here is the mnemonic sign. Again, neutrophils and monocytes, that is 6 to 8%, are phagocytic cells. Neutrophils and monocytes are phagocytic cells. Okay. Phagocytic cells which destroy the foreign organism entering the body. Basophils secrete histamine, serotonin, heparin, etc. that are involved in the inflammatory reactions. Okay. uh, Eosinophil 2 to 3%, that eosinophil resist infections and are also associated with the allergic reactions. Lymphocytes are of the two major types, B and T reaction, B and T forms, and both B and T lymphocytes are responsible for the immune responses of the body. Okay, platelets are called the thrombocytes. The are cell fragments produced from the megakaryocytes, special cells in the bone marrow. Okay, blood normally contains 1 lakh 50,000 to 3 lakh 50,000 platelets. This is more than white blood cells. White blood cells were 6,000 something, I don't know, I don't remember. This is leukocytes, 6,000 to 8,000 milliliter, and about RBC it was 5.5 million to 6 million per milliliter cube of blood. Here it was 5 millions to 5.5 millions. Okay, no, 5 millions to 5.5 millions. Leukocyte is 6,000 to 8,000, 6,000 to 8,000 per milliliter, per millimeter cube. Okay, 6,000 to 8,000 per millimeter cube of the blood, and thrombocyte is 1 lakh 50,000 to 3 lakh 50,000 platelets per milliliter of the blood. Platelets can release a variety of substances, most of which are involved in the coagulation or clotting of the blood. A reduction in their number can lead to the clotting disorders, which will lead to the excessive loss of blood from the body. Blood groups. Okay, blood groups, excessive loss. A reduction in their number can lead to the clotting disorders, which will lead to the excessive loss of blood from the body. Blood groups, as you grow, blood of the humans differ in certain aspects through it though it appears to be similar, whereas various types of grouping of blood has been done. Two such groupings, the ABO and the RH, are widely used all over the world. ABO grouping is based on the presence or the absence of the two surface antigens, chemicals that can induce immune response on the RBCs, namely A and B. Similarly, the plasma of different individuals contain two natural antibodies, protein produced in the response to the antigens. The distribution of the antigens and the antibodies in the four groups of the blood AB, and O are given in the table 15.1. You probably know that during the blood transfusion, any blood cannot be used. Okay, the blood of a donor has to be carefully matched with the blood of the recipient before any blood transfusion to avoid severe problems of clumping, destruction of the blood, and the donor's compatibility is also as shown. Blood group. The distribution of the antigens and antibodies is in the four groups of blood A, B, and AB and O are given in 15.1 table. Okay, you probably know that during the blood transfusion, any blood cannot be used. The blood of the donor has to be carefully matched with the blood of the recipient before any blood transfusion to avoid any severe problems of clumping, destruction of the RBC. The donor's compatibility is also shown in the table. Okay, table has the blood group A, B, AB, and O. The antigens on these RBCs, like A has the A antigen, B has the B antigen, AB has the A and B antigen both. O has no antigens, nil. So, talking about the antibodies in the plasma, they have a blood group has antibody B, because antibody B means anti B. It destroys the blood red blood cells RBCs with B like uh, B antigens, RBC which has B antigens, in case that's why clumping happens. So A has antibody B blood group B has antibody A, and AB blood group has no antibodies, because it takes the both A and B antigens both, and O has both antibodies, right? O is a universal donor, but AB is a universal recipient. Okay, gotcha. AB can receive anything, O cannot receive anything. O blood group is the most unluckiest person. O, because it cannot take blood from anyone. It just require the person, if they require to get the blood transfusion, so they have to get the person or another blood, that blood group should be O blood group, otherwise there will be no transfusion, or the clumping of the RBC can happen, and relatively it is fatal for the person. So O blood group peoples are the rarest one, but unluckiest one, because this creates a havoc. AB is the luckiest one. In case of the, if we see like this, from the above mentioned table, it is evident that the blood group O can be donated to the person with any blood group. Yeah, right. O can donate to anyone. मतलब बड़े दिल वाला donate and can be donated to the persons with any blood group, and hence O group individuals can are called universal donors, right? They are universal donors. O is the universal donor. Persons with AB can accept blood from the persons with AB as well as the other groups of the blood. Therefore, such persons are called universal recipient. RH grouping. Another antigen, the RH antigen, similar to one person, is rhesus monkeys. Hence, RH is also observed on the surface of the RBCs of majority, nearly 80% of the humans. Is also observed on the surface of the RBCs of majority, nearly 80% of the humans. Okay, such individuals are called RH positive, and those in whom this antigen is absent is called RH negative. An RH negative person, if exposed to the RH positive person blood, will form specific antibodies against the RH antigen. Therefore, RH group should also be matched before transfusion. A special case of RH incompatibility mismatching has been observed between the RH negative blood of a pregnant mother with the RH positive blood of the fetus. RH antigens of the fetus do not get exposed to the RH negative blood of the mother in the first pregnancy, as two bloods are well separated by the placenta. However, during the delivery of the first child, there is a possibility of the exposure of the maternal blood to small amount of the Rh positive blood from the fetus. In such cases, the mother starts preparing antibodies against Rh antigen in her blood. In case of her subsequent pregnancies, the Rh antibodies from the mother, Rh negative, can leak into the blood of the fetus, Rh positive, and destroy the fetal RBCs. This could be fatal to the fetus, or could cause severe anemia and jaundice to the baby. This condition is called erythroblastosis fetalis. This can be avoided by administering anti-RH antibodies to the mother immediately after the delivery of the first child, right? Now moving forward, coagulation of the blood. Coagulation of the blood, you know that we when you cut your finger or hurt yourself, your wound does not continue to bleed for a long time. Usually the blood stops flowing after some time. Do you know why? Blood exhibits coagulation or a clotting in response to an injury or a trauma. This is a mechanism to prevent the excessive loss of blood from the body. You would have observed a dark reddish brown scum formed at the site of the cut or an injury over a period of time. It is a clot or a coagulum formed mainly of a network of threads called fibrins, in which the dead and damaged formed elements of the blood are trapped. Fibrins are formed by the conversion of inactive fibrins are formed by the conversion of the inactive fibrinogens in the plasma by the enzyme thrombin. Thrombins in turn are formed by the another inactive substance, okay, present in the plasma called prothrombin. Okay, prothrombin is converted into thrombin, and this thrombin enzyme, this is an enzyme which converted inactive fibrinogen into fibrins, which was present in that brown scum. That is, it is the fiber. It is a clot or a coagulum formed mainly or a network of threads called fibrins. Okay, it is a network of threads in which dead and damaged formed elements of the from the blood are trapped, right? Thrombins in turn are formed from the another inactive substances present in the plasma called prothrombin. An enzyme complex, thrombokinase, is required for the above reaction. Okay, gotcha. Enzyme called thrombokinase is required to convert prothrombin, which is inactive, into thrombins, and this thrombin enzyme convert fibrinogen into fibrin, which is a network of thread. It converts a network of threads, and some dead forms of cells and damaged form elements of the blood are trapped in this. So it is helpful in the clotting. This is the clotting mechanism mainly. This is the cascade process, right? This complex is formed by the series of linked enzymatic reaction. Okay, this is called cascade process, and involving a number of factors present in the plasma in an inactive state. Right, it is a series of steps. This cascade process is a long process, and an injury or a trauma stimulates the platelets in the blood to release certain factors which activate the mechanism of coagulation. Platelets are on fire, right? Certain factors released by the tissues at the site of the injury also can initiate coagulation. Certain factors released by the tissues, okay, at the site of the injury can also initiate coagulation. Tissues has also some roles. Platelets has some roles, and fibrinogen plasma has that main role, right? Which has many enzymes and fibrinogens converted into fibrins, and all the inactive enzymes converted into active enzymes, and they are all they are all dependent on each other. It is a process. One enzyme get activated, then it activates the other enzyme, then it goes to the other enzyme, right? This process is called the cascade process, and this in turn leads to the coagulation. Calcium ions play a very important role in clotting. Your calcium ion is very important role in clotting. Lymph, tissue fluid. As the blood passes through the capillaries in the tissues, some water along with the capillaries in the tissues, some water along with many small water soluble substances move out into the space between the cells of the tissues. leaving the large proteins and most of the formed elements in the blood vessels. Large proteins are the most of the formed elements in the blood vessels. This fluid released out is called the interstitial fluid or a tissue fluid. This it has the same mineral distribution as in the plasma, in the plasma, right? An exchange of the nutrient gases, etc., between the blood and the cells always occur through this fluid. Okay, blood and the cells always occurs through this fluid. And elaborate it leaves behind some larger proteins and most of the formed elements in the blood vessels, right? So an elaborate network of vessels called the lymphatic system collects this fluid and drains it back to the major veins. The fluid present in the lymphatic system is called the lymph. The fluid present in the lymphatic system is called the lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing specialized lymphocytes which are responsible for the responses of the body. In immune responses of the body, lymph is also an important carrier for lymph. Okay, the fluid present in the lymphatic system is called lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing specialized lymphocytes which are responsible for the immune responses of the body. It present in the lymphatic system is called lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing specialized lymphocytes which are responsible for the immune responses of the body. Lymph is also important and is also an important carrier for the nutrients, hormones, etc. So important carrier for the nutrients, hormones, etc. Fats are absorbed through lymph in the lacteals present in the interstitial villi. The fluid present in the lymphatic system is called lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing specialized lymphocytes which are responsible for the immune responses of the body. Lymph is also an important carrier for nutrients, hormones, etc. Fats are absorbed through the lymph in the lacteals present in the interstitial villi. Fats are absorbed through it, right? An elaborate network of vessels called lymphatic system collects this fluid and drains it back to the major veins, right? Collects the fluid and drains it back to the major veins. This fluid contains the lymphatic system called the veins, right? And circulatory pathways. The circulatory patterns are of the two types: open or closed. Open circulatory systems is present in the arthropods and mollusks, in which the blood is pumped by the heart, passes through the large vessels into the open spaces or body cavities called sinuses. Annelids, here we talked about, right, open circulatory system which has arthropods and mollusks, in which blood pumped by the heart passes through the large vessels into the open spaces or body cavities called the sinuses. Annelids and chordates have closed closed circulatory system in which the uh, blood pumped by the heart is blood pumped by the heart is always circulatory through the closed network of the blood vessels, right? And which blood pumped by the heart is always circulated through a network of the blood vessels. This pattern is considered to be more advantageous as the flow of the fluid can be more precisely regulated. Okay, this pattern is considered to be more advantageous as the flow of the fluid can be more precisely regulated. All vertebrates possess a muscular chambered heart, right? And fishes have a two chambered heart with an atrium and a ventricle, right? All vertebrates possess a muscular chambered heart. Fishes have two-chambered heart with an atrium and a ventricle. Amphibians and reptiles, except crocodiles, have three-chambered heart. Right? Okay, amphibians and reptiles. Okay, here frog also comes with has three-chambered hearts. Heart. It is in our syllabus, so I mentioned it here only that frog is also included and it is an amphibian and it has which has two atria and single ventricle, while here amphibian crocodile is also is a reptile but it has four chambered heart, right? Whereas crocodiles, birds, and mammals possess a four-chambered heart with two atria and two ventricles. Again, we will read it. All vertebrates possess a muscular chambered heart, right? And the fishes have two-chambered heart with an atrium and a ventricle. Amphibians and reptiles, except crocodile, have three-chambered heart with two atria and one single ventricle, whereas crocodiles, birds, and mammals have possess four-chambered heart and two with two atria and two ventricles. In fishes, the heart pumps out the deoxygenated blood, which which is oxygenated by the gills and supplied to the body parts, right? from the from where the deoxygenated supplied to the body from where deoxygenated blood is returned to the heart single circulation. Okay, for the two chambered heart single circulation, mainly in fishes has two chambered heart, right? Fishes. And in amphibians and reptiles, the left atrium receives the oxygenated blood from the gills or lungs or skin, and the right atrium gets the deoxygenated blood. Same for the humans also. Right one gets deoxygenated and left one gets the oxygenated blood from the other parts of the body parts, like from the other parts of the body. And however, they get mixed up in the single ventricle, which pumps out the mixed blood. Incomplete double circulation. Okay, three chambered hearts have the incomplete blood circulation, right? Incomplete double circulation, right? In the birds and mammals, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood received by the left and the right atria respectively passes on the ventricles, okay, of the same side, and the ventricles pump it out without any mixing up. That is, the two separate circulatory pathways are present in these organisms, hence these animals have double circulation, right? Let us study the human circulatory system. Human circulatory system, also called the blood vascular system consists of various chambered heart and a network of the closed branching blood vessels and blood, the fluid which is circulated, close branching of the blood. Heart is a mesodermally derived organ. It is situated in the thoracic cavity in between the two lungs, slightly tilted to the left, right? It has the size of a clenched fist. Okay, it is protected by the double walled membranous bag pericardium enclosing the pericardial fluid, right? For the lungs, it is the pleural membrane and it contains the pleural fluid. Our heart has four chambers, two relatively small upper chambers called the atria and two larger lower chambers called the ventricles. Atria is relatively smaller than the ventricles, right? And a thin muscular wall called the interatrial septum separates the right and the left atrial, whereas the thick walled the interventricular septum separates the left and the right ventricles. The atrium and the ventricle of the same side are also separated by the thick fibrous tissue called the atrioventricular septum. Okay, and however, each one of these septa are provided with an opening through which the two chambers of the same side are connected. The opening between the right atrium and right ventricle, right atrium, I told you, deoxygenated area, deoxygenated region. Deoxygenated blood comes here in the right atrium and then the right ventricle. Is guarded by the valve of three muscular flaps or cusp. Okay, the tricuspid valve, whereas the bicuspid or mitral valve guarded the opening of the left atrium or left ventricle. Okay, the openings of the right and the left ventricles into the pulmonary artery respectively, right and the left. Right is pulmonary artery which carries deoxygenated blood, the only artery which carries the deoxygenated blood in our body, and the aorta, which is a vein. Okay, it carries oxygenated blood respectively and are provided with the semilunar valves. The valves in the heart allows the flow of the blood only in one direction, that is from the atria to the ventricles and from the ventricles to the pulmonary artery or aorta. These valves prevent any backward flow. The entire heart is made up of cardiac muscles. The walls of the ventricles are much thinner than that of the atria. A specialized cardiac musculature called the nodal tissue is also distributed in the heart. A patch of this system, the patch of this tissue is present in the right. Okay, imagine right upper corner of the right atrium called the sinoatrial node, and another mass of this tissue is seen in the lower left. Okay, lower left of the right atrium, lower left corner of the right atrium. Okay, which is close to the atrium, right? You can imagine that, you have to imagine that, visualize your inside your brain. Okay, which is close to the atrioventricular septum. If you cannot visualize, please prefer to the diagram, it will help you a lot. Called the atrioventricular node, a bundle of nodal fibers. Okay, a bundle of nodal fibers, atrioventricular bundle, continues with the avn, which passes through the atrioventricular septa to emerge on the top of the interventricular septum and immediately divides into the right and the left bundle. These branches give rise to the minute fibers throughout the ventricular musculature of the respective sites and are called the Purkinje fibers. The nodal musculature has the ability to generate action potentials without any external stimuli, that is, it is auto-excitable. However, the number of the action potential that could be generated in the minute generated in a minute vary in different parts of the nodal system. The sinoatrial node can generate maximum number of action potentials, that is 70 to 75 per minute, is responsible for initiating and maintaining the rhythmic contractile activity of the heart. Therefore it is called the pacemaker. Our heart normally beats 70 to 75 times in a minute, average 72 beats per minute, right? Again, we will read this is important. Okay, a patch of this tissue is present in the right upper corner of the right atrium called sinoatrial node, san, and another mass of this tissue is seen in the lower left corner of the right atrium close to the atrioventricular septum called the avn, atrioventricular node. A bundle of nodal fibers, atrioventricular node, AV bundle, continues from the avn, which passes through the atrioventricular septa to emerge on the top of the interventricular septum. Interventricular septum and immediately divides into right and left bundle, right? And these branches give rise to the minute fibers, right? Throughout the ventricular musculature of the respective sites and are called the Purkinje fibers. The nodal musculature has the ability to generate action potentials without any external stimuli, that is, it is auto-excitable. Okay, here these nodal musculature, which was the Purkinje fibers, has the ability to generate action potentials without any external stimuli, which is called the auto-excitability. We have to keep this in mind, right? and however the number of the action potentials that could be generated in a minute vary at different parts of the nodal system. Right, the SAN can generate maximum number of action potentials, that is 70 to 75 per minute, and is responsible for initiating and maintaining the rhythmic contractile activity of the heart. Therefore it is called the pacemaker, and our heart normally beats 70 to 75 times in a minute. Right, cardiac cycle. How does the heart function? Let us take a look. To begin with, all the four chambers of the heart are in a relaxed state. That is, they are in the joint diastole. Okay, as the tricuspid and a bicuspid valves are open, blood from the pulmonary veins and the vena cava, okay, flows into the left and the right ventricle respectively. Pulmonary veins and the vena cava, left and the right. Okay, vena cava carries deoxygenated and it goes to the right atria and the right. Okay, gotcha. The semilunar valves are closed at this stage. The SAN now generate an action potential which stimulates both atria to undergo a simultaneous contraction. The atrial systole, the contraction. Systole means contraction. This increases the flow of the blood into the ventricles by about 30%. Right. Okay. The action potential is conducted to the ventricular side by the. Okay, first of all, the SAN when SAN generated the action potential which stimulated the atrial side, now it will stimulate the ventricular side by the AVN and the AV bundle, from where the bundle of His is transmit it through the bundle of His transmitted through the entire ventricular musculature. This AVN AV bundle, and from where the bundle of His is translated to the ventricular muscles musculature, and this causes the ventricular muscles to contract. Ventricular systole. The atria undergoes relaxation diastole. Atria here in this situation goes diastole, relaxation, diastole, atrial diastole, coinciding with the ventricular systole. Ventricular systole increases the ventricular pressure, causing the closure of the tricuspid and bicuspid valves due to the attempted backflow of the blood into the atria. As the ventricular pressure increases further, the semilunar valves guarding the pulmonary artery right side and the aorta in the left side are forced open, right, allowing the blood in the ventricles to flow through these vessels into the circulatory pathways. The ventricles now relax, ventricular diastole, and the ventricular pressure falls, causing the closure of the semilunar valves, which prevents the backflow of the blood into the ventricles. And as the ventricular pressure declines further, the tricuspid valves and the tricuspid are pushed open by the pressure in the atria exerted by the blood, which are being emptied into them by the veins. The blood now once again moves freely to the ventricles. The ventricles and the atria are now again in the relaxed joint diastole state as earlier. Soon the SAN generates a new action potential, and the events described above are repeated in the sequence and are the process continues. This sequential event in the heart, which is cyclically repeated, is called the cardiac cycle, and it consists of the systole and a diastole of both atria and ventricles. As mentioned earlier, the heart beats 72 times per minute. That is the many cardiac cycles are performed per minute. Right. Okay. Cardiac cycles are performed per minute. From this, it could be deduced that the duration of the cardiac cycle is zero point 0.8 seconds. During the cardiac cycle, each ventricle pumps out approximately 70 milliliter of blood, which is called the stroke volume. In each cardiac cycle, during a cardiac cycle, each ventricle 70 milliliter. The stroke volume multiplied by the heart rate, number of beats per minute, give the cardiac output. Stroke volume into number of beats per minute gives the cardiac output. Therefore, the cardiac output can be defined as the volume of the blood pumped out by the ventricle per minute and averages around 5 milliliter or 5 liters, 5,000 milliliter or 5 liters in the healthy individual. The body has the ability to alter the stroke volume as well as the heart rate and thereby the cardiac output. For example, the cardiac output of an athlete will be much higher than that of the ordinary man. During each cardiac cycle, two prominent sounds can be produced which can be easily heard through a stethoscope. The first sound, lub, is associated with the closure of the tricuspid and bicuspid valves, whereas closure of the tricuspid and bicuspid valve, lub, and whereas the second heart sound, that is dub, is associated with the closure of the semilunar valves. These sounds are clinical diagnostic significance. ठीक है. Cardio electrocardiograph, ECG. You are probably familiar with this scene from the typical hospital television show. A patient is hooked up to a monitoring machine that shows voltage traces on screen and makes the sound peep, 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 peep as the patient goes into the cardiac rest. This type of machine this machine is called electrocardiograph, is used to obtain an electrocardiogram, ECG. ECG is a graphical representation of the uh, of the graphical representation of electrical activity of the heart during the cardiac cycle. To obtain the ECG as shown in the diagram, right, in the diagram, right, diagrammatic presentation of the standard ECG figure. Patient is connected to the machine with the three electrical leads, right, one in each wrist and two and to the left ankle that continuously monitor the heart activity. For a detailed evaluation of the heart function, multiple leads are attached to the chest region, right, for detailed evaluation of the heart functions. Multiple here we will talk only about the standard ECG. Each peak of the ECG is identified with the letter uh, from P to T that okay, corresponds to the specific electrical activity of the heart. The P wave, PQRST, okay. P wave represents the electrical excitation of the atria, that is depolarization of the atria, which leads to the contraction of both the atria. Depolarization of the atria, excitation of the atria, and contraction of the both of the atria goes together. Okay, P wave. P wave means depolarization of the atria, excitation of the atria, or contraction of the atria. Okay. QRS complex represent depolarization of the ventricles, which initiates the ventricular contraction, and the contraction starts shortly after the Q. Okay, shortly after Q, and marks the beginning of the systole. Q marks the beginning of the systole, that is the contraction of the ventricle. And T wave represents the return of the ventricles from the excited to the normal state, that is repolarization. Okay, the end of the T wave marks the end of the systole. Marks the end of the systole, right? Again, uh, obviously by counting the number of the QRS complexes that occur in a given time period, can one can determine the heartbeat rate of an individual. Since the ECG obtained from the different individuals have roughly the same shape of a given lead configuration, any deviation from the shape indicates a possible abnormality or disease. Hence, it is a great clinical significance. Okay, okay. Double circulation. The blood flows strictly by the fixed route called the blood vessels, the arteries, the veins. Basically, each artery and vein consists of three layers: an inner lining of the squamous endothelium called the tunica intima, the middle layer of the smooth muscles, inner lining, squamous endothelium called tunica intima, middle layer of the smooth muscles and the elastic fibers, tunica media, and an external layer of the fibrous connective tissue, external fibrous connective tissue, which with collagen fibers called the tunica externa, tunica intima, tunica media, and tunica externa. Tunica intima, that has the inner lining of the squamous endothelium, okay, and the middle is the smooth muscles. It is a smooth muscle and elastic fibers is called tunica media, and an external layer of the fibrous connective tissue with collagens called the tunica externa. Tunica media is comparatively thin in the veins, right? Thin in the veins, and in comparatively or respectively with respect to the arteries. As mentioned earlier, the blood is pumped. It has a diagram. We will see that later. As mentioned earlier, the blood pumped by the right ventricle, okay, enters the pulmonary artery, whereas the left ventricle pumps the blood into the aorta. The deoxygenated blood pumped into the pulmonary artery is passed on to the lungs, from where the oxygenated blood is carried on the pulmonary veins into the left atrium. This pathway constitute the pulmonary circulation, right? And the oxygenated blood entering the aorta is carried by the network of arteries, arterioles, and capillaries to the tissues, from where the deoxygenated blood is collected by the system of venules, veins, and vena cava, and emptied into the right atrium. This is called systemic circulation. The systemic circulation provides nutrients, oxygen, and other essential substances to the tissues, and takes carbon dioxide and other harmful substances away from elimination. A unique vascular connection exists between the digestive tract and a liver, called the hepatic portal system. The hepatic portal vein carries blood from the intestine, okay, carried blood from the intestine to the liver, okay, before it is delivered to the systemic circulation, right? Okay. Systemic circulation, once again, kya tha? The pathway constitute the pulmonary circulation. The oxygenated blood entering the aorta is carried by the network of arteries, arterioles, and capillaries to the tissues, from which the deoxygenated blood is collected by the system of the venules, veins, and vena cava, emptied into the right atrium, and this is called systemic circulation, right? And here, for before the blood goes to the systemic circulation, the intestine, the blood flows from the hepatic portal vein carries the blood. Hepatic portal vein carries the blood from intestine to the liver before it is delivered to the systemic circulation. A special coronary system of the blood vessels is present in our body, okay, exclusively for the circulation of blood to and from the cardiac musculature, for the use of heart itself. It is the special coronary system, coronary artery, okay. Pulmonary system, here is the diagram of everything, the flow of blood, dorsal aorta, vena cava, and everything. Diagram are also very important, because based on this the questions of NCERT or diagram based questions come in the NEET examination. So we have to keep in mind even the regions where it is named or pointed, or like it has the arrows, where the arrows are pointed and named. We have to keep that in mind, because sometimes the diagrams in that NEET examination are not so clear, so we have to be uh, clear in ourselves that I know that diagram and I know clearly where what is it has named according to the NCERT book. So you have to grasp these diagrams also. So vena cava is a great vein, right? Here it is written, great veins, vena cava. Vena cava takes the blood throughout the body, from means it takes against the gravity to the heart, and from the the deoxygenated blood. So it is also called the great veins because it requires so much work and so much pressure. So it against the gravity, it has to do work against the gravity too. So it is also called the great veins, right? And it goes to the body parts, and then okay, from the body parts vena cava, right? Then the veins, that tunica intima, tunica media, and tunica externa, right? These were the names. Let me tell you again. Blood vessel: tunica indica, intima, tunica externa, and tunica media. Tunica intima, middle layer of the smooth layer. Okay. Tunica intima is the squamous epithelium. Okay. Sorry. Squamous endothelium. Squamous endothelium. And tunica media is a smooth muscle layer of smooth muscle and elastic fibers, and tunica externa layer of fibrous connective tissue with collagen fibers, right? So here we can see the tunica media of veins are less thin, is thinner than the tunica media of the artery. As see, smooth muscles represent the tunica media. Again, the green part, the yellow part is the tunica externa, and the green part is tunica media, and the inner part is tunica intima, that is the endothelium. Endothelium, right? No, endo what was that word? Endothelium, right? Squamous endothelium, right? Regulation of the cardiac activity. We are going to end this chapter. Regulation of the cardiac activity. Normal activities of the heart are regulated intrinsically, that is auto regulated by specialized muscles, nodal tissue. Okay, regulation. Hence the heart is called myogenic, right? Normal activities of the heart are regulated intrinsically, that is auto regulated by the specialized muscles, nodal tissue. Okay, hence the heart is called myogenic. A special neural center in the medulla oblongata can moderate the cardiac function through the autonomic nervous system, ANS. Neural signals through the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nerves can increase the rate of the heartbeat and the strength of the ventricular contraction, and thereby the cardiac output. Okay, as we have learned in the case of athletes, we can alter the people can alter the cardiac output and the beats per minute of the heart, right? The stroke volume and cardiac output. Okay, so here it has the centers, sympathetic nerves helps in the increasing of the heartbeat. Here the neural signals called the sympathetic nerves helps in this system. So on the other hand, parasympathetic neural signals, another component of the ANS, that is autonomic nervous system, another component parasympathetic. The sympathetic nerves, ANS, part of the ANS, can increase the heart rate, and the parasympathetic neural signals decreases the rate of the heartbeat, speed of the conduction of the action potential, and thereby the cardiac output. Okay. Parasympathetic mainly leads to the to make in making the process normal to as it was earlier. It's just like you are exercising and you are heavy breathing. You will not heavy breathe, मतलब वैसा तुम्हारा हमेशा रहेगा नहीं. You will eventually get to the point which the normal body breathing rate that was 72 beats per minute, average breathing rate. You will come to the normal point eventually by the process. Here the parasympathetic neural signals do these works, right? Making the body back to the normal, back to the square one. Okay. And decrease of the heartbeat and speed of the conduction of the action potential, and thereby the cardiac output. Okay, speed of the conduction of the action potential, and by the it's okay. Adrenal medullary hormones can also increase the cardiac output. Adrenal medullary hormones can also increase the cardiac output. Okay, adrenal medullary hormones can also increase. Medullary hormones can also increase the cardiac output. Okay. Ah. Disorders of the circulatory system, high blood pressure, hypertension. Hypertension is the term of the blood pressure that is higher than the normal, that is 120 to 80. In this measurement, 120 millimeter Hg millimeters of mercury pressure is the systolic or pumping pressure, that and 80 millimeter Hg is diastolic, is the diastolic or the resting pressure. If the repeated checks of the blood pressure of an individual is 140 to 90, 140 over 90 or higher, it shows hypertension. High blood pressure leads to the heart diseases and also affects the vital organs like brain and kidneys. Coronary artery disease, often referred to as atherosclerosis, affects the vessels that supply blood. Okay. Atherosclerosis, CAD. Okay. Often referred to as atherosclerosis. Okay. Affects the vessels that supply blood to the heart muscles. It is caused by the deposits of calcium, fat, cholesterol, and fibrous tissues, which makes the lumen of the arteries narrower. CAD, coronary artery diseases. Right here, we already told you that the coronary artery is the artery which supplies blood to the muscles. Okay, only this artery can so that the heart will perform normally. But if we get depositions of calcium, fat, cholesterol, and fibrous tissues inside this artery, then the lumen will get narrower, obviously, and the flow of blood will be it will get resisted, and it will get slow, or it will there will be a problem for the heart functioning. Okay. Angina angina, it is called the angina pectoris. Okay, it is also called the angina pectoris. A symptom of an acute chest pain appears when no enough oxygen is reaching the heart muscles, right? Angina can occur in men and women of any age, but it is more common among the middle aged and elderly, right? Middle aged and elderly. It occurs due to the conditions that affect the blood flow. Heart failure means the state of the heart when it is not pumping blood effectively enough to meet the needs of the body. It is sometimes called the congestive heart failure, because the congestion of the lungs is one of the main symptom of this disease. The heart failure is not the same as the cardiac arrest when the heart stops beating, or heart attack. Okay, or heart attack when the heart muscle is suddenly damaged by the inadequate heart muscles. In a heart attack, heart muscles is suddenly damaged by an inadequate blood supply. And cardiac arrest when the heart stops beating. Okay, cardiac arrest when the heart stops beating in the cardiac arrest. Okay. In the cardiac arrest, heart stops beating. In heart attack, with the heart muscles is suddenly damaged by the inadequate blood supply. Heart failure means the state of the heart when it is not pumping blood effectively enough to meet the needs of the body. Heart failure, and it is sometimes called the congestive heart failure, because of the congestion of the lungs is one of the main symptom of this disease, right? And the summary, here we will read the summary and the end of the chapter. Summary is quite big, right? Vertebrates circulate blood, a fluid vertebrates circulate blood, a fluid connective tissue in their body, and to transport essential substances to the cells and to carry waste substances from there. Okay, vertebrates circulate blood and a fluid connective tissue in their body to transport essential substances to the cells and to carry waste substances from there. Another fluid lymph tissue fluid is also used for the transport of certain substances. Blood comprises of fluid matrix, plasma, and formed elements. Red blood cells, RBC, erythrocytes, WBC, leukocytes, and platelets, thrombocytes constitute the formed elements. Blood of humans are grouped into AB, and O systems based on the presence of or absence of two surface antigens, AB, on the RBCs. Another blood grouping is also done based on the presence or absence of another antigens called the rhesus factor on the surface of the RBCs. The spaces between the cells in the tissue fluid, the fluid derived from the blood called the tissue fluid. This fluid, called the lymph, is almost similar to the blood except for the protein content and the blood formed elements. All the vertebrates and the few invertebrates have a closed circulatory system. Our circulatory system consists of a muscular pumping organ, heart, and a network of vessels, a fluid, blood. Okay, our circulatory system of the muscular pumping organ, heart, and a network of vessels and a fluid called blood. And heart has a two atria and two ventricles. Cardiac musculature is auto-excitable. Sinoatrial node SAN generates the maximum number of action potentials per minute, 70 to 75 per minute, and therefore it sets the pace of the activities of the heart. Hence, it is called the pacemaker. Okay, and the action potential causes the atria and the ventricle to undergo contraction systole, followed by their relaxation diastole. The systole forces the blood to move from the atria to the ventricles and to the pulmonary artery and the aorta. And the systole forces the blood to move from the atria to the ventricles and the pulmonary artery and aorta. The uh, cardiac cycle is formed by the sequential events in the heart, which is called cyclically, which is cyclically repeated and is called the cardiac cycle. Okay, a healthy person shows 72 such cycles per minute. Therefore, about 70 milliliter of blood is pumped by each ventricle during the cardiac cycle, and it is called the stroke or a beat volume. Uh, volume of the volume of the blood pumped out by the each ventricle per minute is called the cardiac output. It is equal to the stroke volume, and heart rate approx 5 liters, right? And the electrical activity of the heart can be recorded from the body surface by using electrocardiograph, and the recording is called electrocardiogram, which is of the clinical importance. We have a double circulation, that is two circulatory pathways, namely pulmonary and systematic, are present. The pulmonary circulation starts by the pumping of the deoxygenated blood by the right ventricle to which of the lungs, where it gets oxygenated and returns to the left atrium, by pulmonary arteries, right? And no, pulmonary veins. And the systematic circulation mm, systematic circulation starts from the pumping of the oxygenated blood by the left ventricle to the aorta, which is carried to the body tissues, and the deoxygenated blood from there is collected by the veins and returned to the right atrium. This is the systematic one. And through the heart is called though the heart is called the auto-excitable, its functions can be moderated by the neural and hormonal mechanism. Okay, thank you. At last we will see the diagram of the heart, which we have skipped earlier, right? Every diagram we saw, but heart, yeah, here it comes. Section of the human heart. Aorta, as you can see, aorta in vena cava is the blue one, which carries the deoxygenated blood, which brings the deoxygenated blood from the whole body parts. Then the sinoatrial node, this, as we can see at the uh, upper topmost right side of the right corner of the upper top of atrium present, okay, right atrium. And then the atrioventricular node, avn node, we can see the lower left corner of the right atrium, right. Chordae tendineae, which is tricuspid tricuspid valve, and present in the between the right atrium and right ventricle, okay. And here we can see the aorta, which brings the, okay, it takes the blood from the left atrium, yeah, left ventricle. So pulmonary artery, you can see, which carries the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and to the lungs, deoxygenated blood. And pulmonary veins written downwards to the pulmonary artery. It brings the oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atrium respectively. And here we can see pulmonary veins carrying the oxygenated blood, and then to the left atrium. And then bundle of his we can see in the diagram too. It is the structural musculature, okay. And which is spreaded around the uh, all over the ventricular wall, okay. The left atrium ventricle we can see there. Here in between the left atrium and left ventricle, mitral valve is present, that is the bicuspid valve. And the interventricular septum, the septum between the ventricular system, ventricles and the apex, it is tilted towards the left side, right. Left side, here it was written earlier, no network of the branching and the fluid, many thing was the slightly tilted towards the left side, the apex is slightly tilted towards the left side, okay. Thank you for joining again. We will move forward towards the other chapters which will come in our NEET examination. So all the best. Thank you. Baba, tata, bye bye.